What if I told you that Ireland, one of the most beautiful countries on earth, is offering you nearly $90,000 to move to an island? Not a gimmick, not a sweepstakes, an actual government-backed program. And all you have to do is say yes to a slower, quieter, more rugged way of life. Imagine waking up to crashing waves instead of traffic, trading in rush hour for seabirds and stone cottages, living on an island where time feels different, where the world doesn't move quite as fast. And that's kind of the point. Now here's the twist. These aren't luxury resorts or tourist hubs. They're real rural communities scattered along Ireland's dramatic Atlantic coast. Places with histories older than most countries, but also places that are slowly dying. Over the years, these islands have seen their populations shrink to the single digits. Schools have closed. Ferries run less often. Some houses haven't been touched in decades, and soon entire villages could disappear. That's why the Irish government launched something bold and honestly kind of brilliant. It's called Our Living Islands, and it's a new national program offering up to Euro $84,000, around $90,000, to anyone willing to move to one of these scenic, remote islands and help bring them back to life. But there's a catch, actually a few. This money isn't for just showing up. You can't use it to buy a house or start a business. And you definitely can't use it to flip a cottage into an Airbnb. The grant is specifically for renovating abandoned or derelict homes, buildings that have been left to decay over the years, but still have bones worth saving. And if you accept the grant, the home has to become your primary residence. This isn't a vacation property. You're expected to move in, put down roots, and become part of the community. It's not just about restoring buildings. It's about restoring life. Now, before you pack your bags, there's one more thing. If you're not an Irish or EU citizen, this program doesn't come with a visa. You'll still need to qualify for long-term residency on your own, whether that's through work, family, or other immigration pathways. So this isn't a free ride, but it is one of the most generous relocation programs in Europe. And for the right person, someone who doesn't just want to visit Ireland, but to live it, breathe it, and rebuild a part of it, this might be the opportunity of a lifetime. Let's dive into how the program works, who it's for, and why Ireland is paying people to bring these islands back from the brink. To understand why Ireland is paying people to live on its remote islands, you have to understand what's been happening to them for the last 100 years. Because these places weren't always empty. In fact, they used to be vibrant, tight-knit communities. Before modern roads and bridges, many Irish islands were self-sustaining microcosms. Villages carved into cliff sides, fishermen hauling in catches each morning, children walking to school in the mist, and families gathering by peat fires under candlelight when the electricity didn't reach that far. These islands were rugged, remote, but they were alive. And then, things changed. Over the course of the 20th century, island life became harder and harder to sustain. Jobs moved inland. Modern education and healthcare became centralized, and young people, especially after World War II, began leaving in search of opportunity. What started as a slow drift away turned into a generational exodus. Entire families packed up and never returned. Stone cottages collapsed into themselves. Some islands went from hundreds of residents to just a dozen. Today, some of these islands have fewer than 10 full-time inhabitants. Others, none at all. But this isn't just about shrinking numbers. It's about losing culture. These aren't just random patches of land in the Atlantic. They're part of Ireland's Gaeltacht, regions where the Irish language is still spoken, where old songs, customs, and stories are passed down in their original form. These islands are living museums of Irish heritage, and without people, that heritage dies. The Irish government sees this as a cultural emergency, because once these communities disappear, they're not coming back. The schools won't reopen. The post offices won't return, and 1,000 years of history could vanish in a generation. But here's the thing. these places are still stunning. The coastlines are untouched, the wildlife is thriving, and the old homes, with the right care, they could be beautiful again. It's not that people don't want to live there, it's that they can't afford to. Not when it costs tens of thousands of euros just to bring a house up to modern standards. No insulation, no plumbing, no heating. Many of these buildings have sat abandoned since the 1950s. So what do you do when your islands are dying, but still full of potential? You invest. And that's exactly what Ireland's doing with our living islands. It's not just about population numbers. It's about inviting new life into old bones, about giving people a reason and the means to return to places most of the world forgot. And for the first time in decades, that might actually be possible. So what exactly is our living islands? In simple terms, it's Ireland's bold new strategy to reverse the decline of its offshore island communities. But in practice, it's much more than just a grant. It's part survival plan, part homecoming. The government officially launched the program in 2023, targeting 30 of Ireland's most remote inhabited islands, spread across counties like Donegal, Mayo, Galway, and Cork. These are islands you can't just drive to. They're cut off from the mainland by water, accessible only by ferry or, in some cases, by causeway during low tide. Some have no stores, no doctors, just cliffs, sea air, stone walls, and the echoes of stories that go back centuries. And under our living islands, the government is offering up to Euro $84,000, around $90,000, to people who are willing to move there and help bring these places back to life. But this isn't a handout. It's not free money for moving. Instead, it's part of an expanded vacant property refurbishment grant, a scheme originally designed to restore empty homes on the Irish mainland. The government extended this initiative to the islands as a way to make renovation financially realistic for people interested in relocating. The grant breaks down into two parts: $70,000 for standard vacant homes and up to $84,000 for derelict properties, meaning homes that are structurally unsound or uninhabitable without major work. But here's the key. You don't just get this money for showing up. To qualify, you must purchase or inherit an eligible property on one of the approved islands and commit to making it your full-time primary residence. That means no Airbnb, no vacation home, no flipping it and leaving. You're expected to live there, not just during the summer, but year-round. And there's more. The grant only applies to renovation costs, not the purchase of the home itself. You'll need to buy the property up front, begin the restoration process, and then apply for reimbursement as work progresses. And if you're not an Irish or EU citizen, you still need to qualify for a valid long-term residency permit or visa. This program won't fast-track your immigration status. So while it sounds like a fantasy, and for many it could be, it's also a serious commitment. But in return, you're getting more than just money. You're getting a chance to become part of a disappearing way of life, to live somewhere most people only visit in postcards or daydreams. You're not just fixing up a house, you're helping rebuild a community. One roof, one family, one island at a time. Coming up next, we'll break down exactly what the catches are, and why this program might not be quite as easy or as dreamy as it first sounds. So, by now, the offer sounds almost too good to be true. $90,000 to live on a remote Irish island, restore a cozy stone cottage, live your slow living dream, and maybe start a sourdough Instagram account? But here's where things get real. Because like any government grant, our living islands comes with rules, requirements, and red tape. And if you don't understand those going in, your dream move could turn into a logistical nightmare. Let's start with the biggest catch. The money is only for renovations. That $84,000 doesn't just show up in your bank account when you arrive. You first have to own a property on one of the approved islands, either by purchasing one or inheriting one. And not just any home qualifies. It has to be vacant for at least 2 years. And if you want the full grant amount, the property needs to be officially classed as derelict, meaning it's in pretty rough shape. Think broken roofs, no insulation, damaged floors, and missing plumbing. Once you own it, you'll need to apply for the grant, submit renovation plans, and stick to a strict timeline. You'll be reimbursed in stages as the work is completed, and everything must be documented. This brings us to catch them are too. You have to live in the house full-time. This isn't a vacation property. You can't use it as an Airbnb. You can't fix it up and sell it for profit. You must turn it into your primary residence. And you're expected to actually live there year-round. And remember, some of these islands get battered by Atlantic storms in the winter. Ferries don't always run. There may be no grocery store. Your nearest doctor could be a boat ride away. It's beautiful, but it's also isolated. Next catch? You still need legal residency. This grant does not come with a visa. If you're not an Irish or EU citizen, you'll have to secure your own immigration path, whether that's through a retirement visa, work permit, or Irish ancestry. You're on your own when it comes to paperwork. And finally, even with the grant, there's the cost. You'll likely still need tens of thousands of euros of your own money to purchase the home and cover upfront renovation expenses before reimbursement. This is not a plug-and-play nomad lifestyle. It's not a turnkey home. It's a project, one that requires patience, planning, and a whole lot of flexibility. So yes, Ireland will pay you to move to an island. But what they're really asking is, are you ready to become part of something bigger? To take responsibility for a piece of history? To build a life that's not just photogenic, but meaningful? For some people, the catches make it a deal breaker. But for others, it's exactly what they've been waiting for. So yes, there are rules, there's paperwork, there are harsh winters and crumbling walls and ferry schedules to memorize. But here's the other side of the story. For the right person, our living islands isn't a burden. It's a chance to build something that actually matters, to trade the chaos of the modern world for a life rooted in simplicity, nature, and community. Because when you strip away the grant requirements and the renovation logistics, what you're left with is something pretty rare. A shot at owning a home, a real home, in one of the most naturally stunning, historically rich countries in Europe. No condo towers, no overpriced studio apartments. Just the sea, the wind, and a place that, for the first time in decades, needs you as much as you need it. The homes on these islands aren't just fixer-uppers. They're time capsules, places where generations were born, raised, and buried. Their walls are thick stone, their chimneys built to weather storms. Many were abandoned when families left in search of a better life. Now you could be the one to bring that life back. And for many, that's exactly the appeal. This isn't about escaping responsibility. It's about choosing a different kind, one that feels more tangible, more connected, more human. You're not buying a lifestyle curated for Instagram. You're building one with your hands, one where your neighbors know your name, where your mornings begin with ocean fog instead of email alerts, where the only traffic jam is sheep on a winding road. And the best part, you don't need to be rich to do it. Sure, the grant doesn't cover everything, but $84,000 is a serious head start. And many of these properties are available for as little as $30,000 to $50,000, depending on the island and the condition. If you've ever dreamed of restoring an old cottage, of living somewhere with more sky than skyline, this program could turn that dream into something real, especially for remote workers, retirees, artists, writers, anyone looking to downshift from the noise of modern life. This isn't just about real estate. It's about reclaiming your time, your space, your peace. And no, it won't be easy. But that's what makes it worthwhile. You're not just moving somewhere beautiful. You're helping shape the next chapter of a community with centuries of history, a place where your presence actually matters. So if you've got the vision, the patience, and the courage to start over, this might be the rare kind of government program that gives more than it takes. All right, let's be real for a minute. Everything we've talked about so far sounds incredible. But if you're watching this from outside the EU, like the US, Canada, or Australia, you might be wondering, can I actually do this? Can I really move to one of these islands? The answer, yes. But it's not as simple as hopping on a plane with a dream and a Pinterest board. Ireland's Our Living Islands program isn't a visa or immigration shortcut. The grant is only available to people who are already legally allowed to live in Ireland long-term. If you're not an Irish or EU citizen, you'll need to sort out your residency before you ever apply for the program. And that's where things get complicated. If you're from an EU or EEA country or Switzerland, good news, you're already in. You can live and work in Ireland freely. No visa, no red tape. If you find a property that qualifies and you meet the grant conditions, you're good to go. But if you're coming from outside the EU, like most viewers probably are, you've got some paperwork ahead of you. You'd need to qualify for one of Ireland's existing long-term residency options. That might be through a work visa, if you land a job in a field Ireland's trying to fill. Or maybe a retirement visa, if you're over 60 and can prove you have a stable income and savings. There are also pathways through ancestry, if you have Irish parents or grandparents. And yes, there are business and investment visas, but those come with their own set of requirements that don't exactly fit the rural island vibe. The key point here is this: the government will help you fix up your house, but they won't help you get in the country. That part is entirely up to you. And even if you do qualify for residency, there's still the money question. You can't apply for the grant unless you already own a qualifying property, which usually means spending at least $30,000 to $50,000 up front, possibly more depending on the location and condition. Then you'll need enough funds to actually begin renovations. Since the grant is reimbursement-based, you'll only get money back after the work is done and documented. So, is it realistic? For someone who already has Irish or EU citizenship? Absolutely. For someone with Irish roots or a serious plan to move abroad permanently? It's doable, but you'll need patience, paperwork, and a budget. And for everyone else, it's a dream that might have to wait, or take a different form. But for the right person, someone who's serious about living a quieter life, someone who's ready to commit, this might just be one of the most beautiful second chances you'll ever find. So now you know the full story. Yes, Ireland really is offering up to $90,000 to people willing to move to its remote islands. But it's not just a cash incentive, it's a challenge and an invitation. You're not being asked to go on vacation. You're being asked to help preserve something rare, a way of life that's been slowly slipping away with each passing generation. These islands aren't theme parks. They're living, breathing communities that just need people. And if you're willing to put in the work, not just in renovating a house, but in becoming part of a place, this program could completely change your life. You won't find nightclubs, you won't find luxury malls. You'll find silence, salt in the air, wind that whistles through stone fences. You'll find neighbors who wave to you just because you're there, and homes that once stood empty, now glowing again with the light in the windows. This isn't a story about free money. It's a story about revival. It's about a country asking for help to hold on to something it treasures and offering something extraordinary in return. Not convenient, not comfort, but meaning, purpose, and maybe a kind of peace that's hard to find in the modern world. Of course, it's not for everyone. For some people, the requirements will feel too steep. The location is too remote. The bureaucracy is too much. And that's okay. But for a certain kind of person, someone who's craving change, or quiet, or a deeper connection to where they live, this might be the exact opportunity they didn't know they were looking for. The kind of life where you know your neighbors, where your hands are calloused from real work, where the house you live in carries the fingerprints of generations before you, and now, yours too. So, would you do it? Would you leave the city behind? Would you trade convenience for community, speed for stillness, rent for restoration? Would you take on an old cottage by the sea, knowing the government will help you rebuild it? If you're willing to call it home? Because somewhere out there, off the coast of Ireland, a little stone house is still standing, waiting. If this video made you pause, even for a second, and think, what if? Then maybe this idea isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. Would you take the leap? Would you trade the noise for something quieter, slower, and more meaningful? Let us know in the comments. We read every one. And if you're curious about more places like this, where the world is literally paying you to start over, hit that subscribe button, because this is just the beginning.